In an open letter, the M23 warned of a humanitarian catastrophe should the UN attempt to deploy troops in the region. The rebels have no intention of letting them do so. This time it concerns a planned war, which will bring about a humanitarian crisis planned by the highest authorities of the United Nations. And we think it's best that UN aid workers separate themselves from the consequences so that they can take care of the people. Despite these threats, the UN said it would go ahead with the intervention force and understood what it was up against. We will not be told what to do or how to react because of the opinions of certain people, especially those of armed groups who are the cause of this insecurity. The humanitarian situation continues to deteriorate in the country's east. The population has suffered from the proliferation of armed groups, foreign intervention, and an undisciplined Congolese army.
The United States and its ally South Korea have been busy carrying out series of military drills in recent times in the wake of threats by North Korea. But results of a recent simulation exercise by United States forces have raised a lot of questions as to whether Washington is prepared for such a scenario. For more on that, let's turn our attention to this report by CNN's Jane Tapper.
Imagine this. The North Korean regime is toppled, either because the U.S. or South Korea take it out or because of a coup, and the U.S. now has to surge troops to secure the country's nuclear stockpiles to make sure they don't fall into the wrong hands. It's a frightening scenario played out recently at the U.S. Army War College, one that did not end all that well. The military set the scene for their war game in the fictitious land of North Brownland, essentially an alias for North Korea.
It was a family regime that had nuclear weapons, lost control of nuclear weapons. The population was considered to be essentially brainwashed.
Paul McCleary, a writer for Defense News, was present as the military officials debated the plans. U.S. troops, he says, had immediate problems surging into the North Korea-like country. V-22 Ospreys zoom U.S. soldiers deep beyond the border, but with reinforcements so far behind, they're quickly surrounded by the enemy and need to be pulled out. American troops eventually make it over the border, but with nuclear sites located in populated areas, their mission grows more difficult. U.S. forces make humanitarian aid drops to draw people out of the cities.
And they made the game as difficult as possible to really test their capabilities. They haven't really spent a lot of time or money modernizing their nuclear and chemical troops. So that's a big concern.
It takes the U.S. a staggering 56 days and a huge force of 90,000 troops to secure the country's nuclear weapons, seen by many as way too long and way too many troops.
We're not very well prepared to deal with a collapsed North Korea.
North Korea expert Bruce Bennett says his numbers for containing the regime's nuclear arsenal run much higher, 200,000 troops. That's larger than the forces in Iraq and Afghanistan at its peak.
We would have to send perhaps a third of our army to South Korea in order to deal with the weapons of mass destruction.
It's thought that North Korea has 100 sites linked to their nuclear and missile program, but with a black tarp shrouding intelligence on the locations, U.S. troops would likely have to fight their way through the country to find and secure them.
North Korea has about 1.2 million people in the military. That's a very large military for us to deal with, but they also have, according to the South Korean Defense Ministry, about 200,000 special forces. And those special forces would be prepared to fight you like Taliban or the Iraqi insurgents.
Of course, the Army was quick to remind us that the fictional North Brownland might not be North Korea expressly, but any one of the 28 countries that have weapons of mass destruction capabilities. Jake Tapper, CNN, Washington.
Former Pakistani President Pervez Musharraf is trying to make a political comeback, but things have not been going according to plan. Musharraf returned from self-exile to run in upcoming elections, but he is facing a host of obstacles. CNN's Nick Robertson gives us an insight in this report.
Pakistan's former military ruler is back at his old house, planning a return to power. But he may be there much longer than he expected.
It's a sprawling estate in one of Pakistan's most sought-after neighborhoods.
and he's just learned that the Supreme Court is barring him from international travel. Good morning, how are you? Very good, thank you very much. He tells me the travel ban troubles him, but not as much as being barred from 3 of 4 districts where he wants to run in the upcoming elections.
My lawyers are appearing and appealing on all the rejection. They are all absolutely frivolous, absolutely baseless, and malicious.
Since he got back last month, the upsets have been mounting. A less than triumphant return, greeted by hundreds of supporters, not hundreds of thousands, as he hoped. He blames the government for the cancellation of his rally that day. One political analyst I met tells me Musharraf has miscalculated his whole return.
The political forces in the country and the new power center, the Supreme Court, is all pitted against him. So this is not the Pakistan where a former military dictator would be welcome.
His popularity peaked over a decade ago. An army commando in a respected military, taking power in a bloodless coup, replacing a corrupt and inept government. A political honeymoon followed. Back then it seemed he could hardly do wrong. But today...
he is facing, very serious charges of treason, of murder, and of the sabotaging Pakistani constitution.
Neither those charges, which he dismisses, nor a Taliban death threat limiting his movements here, seem to diminish Musharraf's hopes of a political comeback.
Anyone who thinks that I don't have support, I totally disagree. Please go down to the streets, go to the markets and streets of Islamabad, go and ask them, go and ask people, what do the common man think?
So we did. To get some opinions from the street, we're going to put the microphone here. This is Islamabad, mostly middle class, and in the past, mostly pro-Musharraf.
This is Nawaz Afridi, and I just want to tell you about Musharraf, that personally I don't like to support him.
My husband is also from the army, and he is also from the commandos. But I think we don't support Musharraf at all.
I am supported to Musharraf, I am liked to Musharraf, I am voted to Musharraf.
Because he has ruined our country.
He is not actually a democratic person, and he have no space in our system. Simply, I said. I think so.
The reality is Musharraf's horizons are shrinking. He may have the trappings of power, but to many Pakistanis, he's yesterday's man. Nick Robertson, CNN, Islamabad, Pakistan.
Well, from that we go with our second break. We'll be right back. Well, we now shift our attention to sports. Medina Serene Masway over the weekend crowned champions of the Dr. Njoguba-sponsored football tournament in Lower Nyomi. Medina came from behind to defeat Kersukum Village by 2-1 in a thrilling and colorful final of a tournament meant to foster unity amongst the youth of the community. Mahmoud Esjala tells us more about the final.
Sportive-looking Dr. Njoguba presiding over the final of yet another successful football tournament he has been sponsoring over the years. Like the previous tournament, this year's final was no different as thousands of fans, among them dignitaries, stormed the Medina Serimas football field to cheer their respective teams. The fanfare was electric and the atmosphere was colorful, with some astonishing display by some of the fans. Medina Serima squared up against Kersukum Village in the pulsating final, which ended 2-1 in favor of Medina Serimas. Playing on their home ground, Medina came from behind to narrowly win by 2-1. Kersukum got off to a bright start, and the visitors took a shock early lead just quarter way into the first half. Omar Jallo's opener silenced the home crowd, giving the traveling fans some hope. Medina Serimas fought back to restore parity just before the break. A dipping cross from the right flank was headed in off the post and scrambled into the net for the equalizing goal. The tempo of the game increased after the interval.